Welcome back. I'm that Halloween movie collector, Pat. This episode is something I've been wanting to do for a while. This is going to be a labor of love. For those, obviously, I'm that Halloween movie collector. Halloween is my world. It is my favorite movie of all time. Encompasses almost everything I do on a daily basis. But I'm also a huge Twilight Zone fan. Even before Halloween, I discovered the Twilight Zone on late night TV back in the early to late 70s when I'd stay up late, my little black and white TV in my bedroom. And at 1 o'clock on WPIX out of New York, Channel 11 used to show The Twilight Zone. So I just fell in love with it, and I've just been Twilight Zone fan forever. Every New Year's Eve, I am glued to the set for the Sci-Fi Channel's Twilight Zone marathon. Even though I've seen all 156 episodes countless times, when it's on, I'm glued to the set for 3 days. So this is something that's been coming for a while. I've been talking about doing it. Finally put my best foot forward. Said, let's do this. The hardest thing was to try to pick my favorite episodes because there's so many of them. So on this channel, I did a lot of top fives and started doing some top tens. So I said, okay, let me see. My top 10 Twilight Zone, not going to work. Top 15, no. Odd number, no. Top 20, still not going to work. So I'm going to do my top 30 Twilight Zone episodes. And I do actually have one honorable mention as well. So let's do this. All right, so for my honorable mention, it's not necessarily one of my favorite episodes, but I'm just giving it an honorable mention simply because of my love for Halloween. From season 3, episode 37, The Changing of the Guard, starring my beloved late great Donald Pleasance, who plays Professor Fowler, who is a English literature teacher at a prep school in Vermont, and he's being retired against his will because he wants to just keep teaching, and it's near Christmas time. They're all leaving for Christmas break, and he's so distraught over losing his job, he's ready to kill himself because he feels like he really hasn't left his mark on humanity. But what happens is he goes later to the school that night, and he's visited by the ghosts of several of his ex-students who went on to greater things due to what he taught them. And them telling him, look, you did leave your mark, and you did it with all of us. So, and then he feels redeemed, and then he decides to take his retirement and live happily ever after. But that is my honorable mention. And starting with number 30, The Silence, Season 2, Episode 25. This one was always a favorite of mine because, I don't know, I just always found it interesting. So basically the story goes that there's this men's club of all these stuffy people, and this one guy, the Colonel, is he's kind of an old, stuffy old codger, and there's one younger member named Tennyson who just constantly runs his mouth, never shuts the hell up, just brags and talks about usually nonsensical bullshit. And he's always talking about money, trying to get people to do investments and whatnot. And the Colonel just can't stand him. So he makes him a bet. Says, I will pay you $500,000 if you keep your mouth shut and you can be quiet for one entire year. So naturally, he actually is broke, so he takes the wager, and they build like this glass enclosed room inside the men's club, and he's monitored 24 hours a day to make sure he's not talking. So it plays out, and over the span of the year, the Colonel is kind of a dick, and just always, he's getting scared that he's actually going to stick up to his end of the bargain, and he's always offering him $5,000. I'll offer you $10,000. You could just get out now. He's talking about his fiance, saying how she's going to leave him, and just all this shit to psych him out. And sure enough, a year goes by. He comes out, and the Colonel's got to face the facts. He doesn't have the money. So the twist is, because there's always a twist in Twilight Zone episodes, is, they're telling him, come on, Tennyson, talk. He can't. He's got this bandana around his throat because he had his vocal cords severed because he knew there was no way in hell he could keep his mouth shut. So what a crazy twist, and just such a great episode. Plays out very, very well. My number 29, Season 3, Episode 16, Nothing in the Dark. Now this is a real popular, very famous one. This is the story of an elderly woman living in an old abandoned tenement that's about to be torn down. And she's done battle with death several times. And she's been at death's door, but she's always survived because she believes if she stays inside and she cannot let death in, that she won't die. So while she's living in this tenement, she hears some ruckus going on outside. She hears gunshots, and she sees a policeman shot outside her door, and falls down the steps. And he's like, please let me in. I need help. I'm a police officer. So slowly but surely, he coaxes his way in there, and she has him in bed, and she's actually helping him get back to better health. And it is played by a very young Robert Redford. So during the course of the episode, he's talking to her and saying, why are you afraid of this, afraid of that? Living like this, you shouldn't live like this. So the guy that's going to be tearing the buildings down comes to the door and starts telling her, look, lady, you got to get out. I'll help you get some of your shit out of here. You need to get out of here because everything's being torn down. She doesn't want to go. And she was telling the police officer, can you help me? And meanwhile, that guy's saying, I don't see anybody. And that's when she starts to realize, wait a second. She sees in the mirror that there's no reflection of him laying on her bed. And he admits he was deaf. He was come there to take her and said, don't be afraid. And he reaches out her hand and says, here, take my hand. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's time. And she does. And she says, when is it going to happen? And he said, it already has. And she looks over and then she sees her body laying on the bed, dead. And they go off and says, what you feared was going to come as thunder, or this was merely a whisper. And they go off. Great, great episode. My number 28 from season 1, episode 25, People Are Alike All Over. Now, this is one of the many Twilight Zone episodes that take aim at space and things, of that nature, going out into outer space and into the future. And it's the story of 3 astronauts that crash land on a planet. And one of them being the late, great Roddy McDowall. The 2 other astronauts don't survive, but Roddy McDowall does. He's Mr. Conrad. And he lands on this planet, and when he finally opens up the door, he sees that there's people that looks just like, people of Earth. And they're dressed in almost like togas, almost like ancient, like Roman type clothing. And they tell him there's nothing to fear. Come out here. We'll help. We'll help you. We'll help you bury your friends who passed away. And so they build this whole replica of a typical American home, and they're saying, you can live out here, everything will be fine. And then little by little, when he's inside the home, he realizes, wait a second, there's no windows, he's locked in, and then all of a sudden, towards the end, you see the curtain open up, and he's inside a cage, and it says Earth creature in their natural habitat. So they captured him and put him in their zoo/museum. So, very great episode. Roddy McDowall was awesome in it. And number 27, season 5, episode 19, Night Call. Now, this is a second episode to feature Gladys Cooper, who was the elderly lady, starring with Robert Redford. And in this one, she stars as an elderly woman. Of course, she was elderly at the time. And she's in a wheelchair, and she has a caretaker help and take care of her. And she keeps getting these mysterious phone calls at night. And it's just like this weird static, and then she hears a slight hello, which is very creepy. Long story short, she's in a wheelchair because she was in an accident years ago with her fiance, and the fiance had passed. And what happens is she finally she calls the phone company, tries to trace the call, and they trace it to where it is, and they said there's nothing there, but the line is down, and where the line landed, it landed on the grave of her dead fiance. And that's what he was doing. He was talking to her, but she just wanted to be left alone. So the last time she had spoken to him, she said, please, whoever this is, just leave me alone. So she realizes what it was, and she wants to keep talking to him because she's all alone. But he says, I want to follow your wishes. You told me to leave you alone. So real creepy episode. My number 26, season 3, episode 9, A Game of Pool. Starring one of my favorite actors of all time, because while I love the Twilight Zone, I love the original Odd Couple. I'm an Odd Couple fanatic. So it stars Jack Klugman and Jonathan Winters. Jonathan Winters is, he's like the deceased pool shark, Fats Brown. And he's like held in high regard, but Jack Klugman is a real good pool, and they just keep comparing it to him, and all he wants to do is be better than him and beat him. So lo and behold, Jonathan Winters comes back, and they play a game of pool, and Jack Klugman wins. What he doesn't realize is now his fate is through eternity. He has to keep going and playing other pool players forever and ever. And Jonathan Winters is telling him, look, this is what you wanted, but now he you're gonna have to keep doing this over and over again. So it's like a little story of be careful what you wish for, so to speak. My number 25, season 2, episode 11, The Night of the Meek. Now this is a great one that is usually watch every Christmas. Tells the story of a drunken Santa who works in a department store, played by the late great Art Carney of Honeymooners fame. He's just a drunk, and he just wishes he could bring joy and happiness to the world because he's so miserable, and he'd love to do things for the kids and for those of the poor. And he just wishes he would love to be Santa Claus and just be able to give back and give to all the people and the kids and just do something good for once. Lo and behold, what happens? He finds this mysterious sack laying around, and when he opens it up and looks inside of it, every time he reaches in, he pulls out a Christmas gift. So he goes to this one shelter where he's handing out gifts to everybody. Then, of course, he's accused of stealing from the store he was working at, which was run by the great John Fielder, where I'm going back to my days of loving The Odd Couple. John Fielder started several Odd Couple episodes. He's going to get arrested because they're like, hey, do you have receipts for all this stuff? Because where's this all coming from? And then he's saying, hey, ask me, what do you want for Christmas? And he's pulling out the stuff that they're asking. So little by little, he goes down to the police station. John Fielder wants to press charges against him. And the cop is saying, look, I don't know what's going on here because it's making sense. So they let him go, and he's giving out all the stuff from the bag. And eventually the bag runs out of stuff. And he's like, all right, that's it. Next thing you know, you see an elf appear, and the elf is basically saying, come on, let's go, Santa Claus. And there's the sleigh with all the reindeer. He got his wish. He wanted to be Santa Claus, and he's become Santa Claus. And then you see a vindication with the police officer and John Fielder are walking home. They're drinking out of this bottle of brandy because that's what John Fielder had asked for, and that's what Art Carney pulled out of the bag. And they're like, did you just see that? And they see him fly over as Santa Claus. Great episode. My number 24, season 1, episode 23, A World of Difference. Now, this is a real creepy one where it's basically an actor who's playing Arthur Curtis. So it starts out with him playing in this part as Arthur Curtis, and then he's an executive, and he's sitting there in the office. Next thing all you hear is cut, and as he turns around, he looks. All of a sudden, he's on a movie set. And he's an actor playing this part. And he's like, no, my name is Arthur Curtis. I don't know what you're talking about. And they say, no, that's not you who you are. This is just the part you're playing. And David White is playing his agent. David White famously playing Larry Tate from Bewitched. And he's telling him, because he's in real life, he's going through a bit of divorce, alcoholism on, this Arthur Curtis character. And in real life. And he's saying, no, I'm who this person is. So he goes to the wife. The wife doesn't know who he is. Nobody knows who he is. And he's trying to prove to them that he is who he is. And then finally, towards the end, when he goes back to the set, he escapes into that world as Arthur Curtis. And then you see he's escaped into the world, the reality he really wanted to be in. So real cool, creepy episode. Love it. My number 23, season 2, episode 24, the Rip Van Winkle caper. This is a pretty cool one, too. Now, the actor whose name is escaping me stars as Mr. DeCruz. Basically tells the story of a bunch of thieves. And they've robbed all this gold, these gold bars. And the one gentleman has invented this type of serum that you can take and basically put you in a state of suspended animation. So they'll wake up 100 years into the future. This way they'll escape, they won't have to worry about getting caught, going to jail, nothing. They'll wake up in this whole new world. And they go into this big cave and these glass enclosures, and they'll sleep for 100 years. So fast forward 100 years, they wake up and they realize, well, maybe nothing seems like it happened. But they look over and a rock in the cave has since cracked the glass on one of them, and you can see he's nothing but bones. So it is 100 years into the future, and the one gentleman, Mr. DeCruz, who's his name is escaping me. He played the psychiatrist, the doctor at the end of the original Psycho, talking about Norman Bates's state of mental health. That's where I know him mostly from. I've seen he popped up in many other things over the years, but that's probably his most famous thing. And he's just a typical piece of shit criminal. So he takes the car, crashes it, and kills the other guy. And he's saying, okay, we're going to go on foot. So they take as much gold bars as they can. and he's going with the other gentleman who invented the serum. And they're walking, and they're in the desert, so they're dying of like thirst. And he keeps saying, "Okay, if you want some of my water, a gold bar for my water." So little by little, he pretty much takes all the gold. And long story short, the other gentleman, Oscar Beregi, that's who it is. He's the older gentleman that invented the syrup. He's going to be on this list with another great episode. And he basically hits him over the head and kills Mr. Cruz. And then all of a sudden, he's laying there basically dying from thirst and malnutrition. And this futuristic car comes by, like almost like a Jetsons thing. And they see him, and he dies. It doesn't make a difference. And the husband goes back to the wife and says, the wife's like, "Oh, what happened?" He's like, "I don't know. It's just a crazy old man over there. He was talking about this gold bars and something like that, saying, I'll give you this," almost like an exchange for something. I guess he didn't realize that they figured out a way to manufacture gold. So now, 100 years in the future, that all the gold that they stole is absolutely worthless. So there's that Twilight Zone twist ending. Number 22, Season 3, Episode 27, Person or Persons Unknown. Now, this one is great, where it's the character David Gurney. He wakes up in bed after a night of drinking, and he's all hungover. Lo and behold, he goes washes his face. When he comes out and he looks, it's not his wife, and the wife is like screaming like, "Who are you? Get out of my room!" And she's calling the police, and he goes down to his job, and they don't know who he is either. There's another guy sitting there at his desk, and he's saying, "This is my job. Who are you?" They call, and the security guard from the bank, because he works in the bank, comes over, and he's saying, "Hey, I known you for all these years," and they were like, "We don't know who you are." Call the police, and he's on the run. Then little by little, he just ends up, they take him and put him in a psych ward, and he's talking to the doctor, and he's telling him all these things. Like he tries to call his parents, and the parents don't know who he is either. But he has this idea. He's like, "Wait a second, we had pictures taken, and they're at the developer." So he escapes from the asylum, jumps out the window, goes and gets those pictures, and he sees it, him and his wife. And when they catch up with him there, the psychiatrist and the police and everything, he says, "Look, here's your evidence." And when they look at it, they're like, "Well, what is it?" And they look, and it's just a picture of him. And so he's basically goes off, and it doesn't exist. But then it shows him waking up at the end of the episode and looking, and the woman that's there is somebody that he has no idea. He doesn't know who that woman is, and it's supposedly his wife. Really cool. There's that Twilight Zone twist ending again, as I mentioned. It's just great. Another great episode. My number 21, Season 3, Episode 22, A Piano in the House. This one is another, well, they're all great episodes. That's why they're on this damn list. So this guy who's is a film critic, he's just an arrogant asshole. He's married to this younger woman, and he goes to this antique place to buy her a gift. Now, he sees a piano player. The kind that used to play the music, and you put these rolls in it, and all the keys would move, and it would just play a tune. So he buys it as a gift for his wife. And the guy that's running the antique stores, he's like just kind of this dick too. And he just demonstrates how it works. He puts it in, and then all of a sudden, the owner of the antique store, who's a jerk, becomes this pleasant, very nice person. As soon as the music plays, he goes back to being a jerk. So the guy buying it is like, "This is interesting," takes it home. Well, he has it shipped home. And lo and behold, every time he puts a roll in and plays a song, whoever is in the room starts to tell the truth. They start to express their feelings and everything about themselves. So he's doing it at her birthday party, and he's doing it and being a real asshole to the people, and doing it little by little until the wife flips the script and does it on him, and he admits the way he is. He's a scared old person. He just makes fun of everybody because he's insecure, and he's just a jackass. So it just comes back to bite him in the ass. Thank you for watching part 1 of my top 30 Twilight Zone episodes. This was originally going to be one long episode, but it got real long, and to keep people's interest and to make it a little bit easier on myself, I decided to break it up into 3 parts. So thank you for sitting through part 1, episodes 30 to 21, and probably in the next couple of days, I will release part 2, which will be 20 to 11. So I hope you come back and check out the next 10. Hope you're enjoying this as much as I enjoy putting it together. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, all that happy horse shit, and I'll see you for part 2.